Okay, it's time for the spell cards of the 5D starter deck. First off, we've got the continuous spell card, Synchronized Realm. Every time you synchro summon a monster, your opponent takes 500 damage. It's a pretty basic card. When I first looked at it, I thought it was a field card, and because I didn't notice the continuous symbol. Oh, I gotta find it. The continuous symbol on the cards. You know, I thought it was a field spell, but I looked at it real quick, another glance, and it was a continuous spell, which is pretty decent. You know, you gotta admit. The one downside to it is, you know, you only have 3 synchro monsters, so at most you'll deal 1,500 to your opponent using this card, but that's still pretty decent, I've got to admit. The next spell card is Synchro Boost. It can be equipped to any monster. It increases that monster's attack by 500 and increases its level by 1. You can use this to increase the level of any monster that, and you know, like say you need a level 2 monster for synchro and all you've got is level 1s on the field. Use this and you'll automatically have a level 2 monster on the field and you can tribute them for a synchro summon. Next card is Synchro Blast Wave. You can only activate it when you've got a synchro monster on the field. And when this card is activated, you can destroy 1 monster on your opponent's side of the field. Pretty basic. You gotta have a synchro monster on the field to use it, so in any other deck this would be kind of useless. But you know, it could be helpful. You know, depending on what you're doing. Devil Summon's a really nice card in this deck. Basically, when you play it, you get an extra normal summon or set this turn. The turn you play it, it's just a basic magic card. It only lasts for 1 turn, and of course, its effect only works once on the turn. You know, but it is helpful, you know, to quick summon monsters so you can synchro summon. But you know, I'd probably have another copy of this in my deck, maybe to kind of, you know, so I have it, or you know, maybe even put Ultimate Offering in, you know, because that stays on the field a little longer. Next card is Symbol of Duty. It's an equipped spell card. You discard 1 normal monster, and you can bring back one of any kind of monster from either graveyard. And as long as this card's on the field, the monster you summon's on the field. And when the monster you just summoned is destroyed, this card's destroyed, and vice versa. Pretty basic. It's like an equipped spell version of Call of the Haunted, except for, you know, it's got a cost, but basically other than that, it's kind of easy to use in this deck since you got a decent number of normal monsters. Of course, Lightning Vortex. Most people probably know what this card does. Discard a card from your hand, destroy all face-ups on the field. That, you know, it can be helpful, you know. I mean, because there isn't really any card that could negate it, like, you know, Dark Hole's White Hole card, you know. That's never really a good thing to have played against you. But, yeah, you know, basically that's Lightning Vortex. Monster Reincarnation. Discard a card from your hand, bring a monster back from the graveyard to your hand. Basically, it's give and take. You take a monster from the graveyard, you put one back in the graveyard. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be a monster. It could be any card from your hand. So let's say you've got, you know, a pretty useless card that, you know, its effect is already useless because, you know, certain cards are gone. You know, send that to the graveyard and get a monster back to your hand, which if you haven't summoned yet, then you could summon it to the field, which is pretty decent, you know. Rush Recklessly. Increase a monster's attack by 700 during the turn this card is activated. Pretty simple. Pretty easy to use. Nice little effect, you know, a quick boost of energy for any monster card. Twister. Pay 500 life points, destroy 1 face-up spell or trap card on the field. Okay, this card is basically a modified version, in my opinion, at least, of Mystical Space Typhoon. I do kind of like it because, you know, I have 2 of these, but I do kind of like it. But I probably would end up using Mystical Space Typhoon more because there's no cost, and it can be any spell or trap card. But I'd say Twister's still a decent card to have in your deck. The Warrior Returning Alive. There's a decent number of Warrior cards in this deck, so I'd say that is actually a pretty useful card. Plus, you don't have to discard a card for it. Basically, all you do is you add a Warrior monster from your graveyard to your hand. And, yeah. I mean, then if you have it summoned, you can summon it to the field, maybe, help in synchro summoning, which is actually another good thing. The last spell card in this deck, Smashing Ground. Destroy a monster on your opponent's side of the field with the highest defense. Basically, if they got a monster that you just can't destroy that has high defense, or maybe it's, maybe it's the only monster and it's got really high attack. You play Smashing Ground, it's gone because if it's the only monster on the field, it's got the highest defense points, even if it's got only like 100 or something. It's still pretty decent.